GM Fox fam, what's up? It's a small crew here, but we'll still go ahead and get started. Oh, hey, come on now. There we go. Cool. Welcome to Operations Office Hour. Might be a shorter one today. Might be a longer one. We'll see what the discussions lead. This is usually an open-ended kind of free-form call. Sometimes it ends up being a Tyler monologue. Try not to let it be that way. Maybe it'll be that way today. We'll see. Maybe we'll get some involvement from some other people in the audience today. The agenda today, we're going to talk about the new release cadence and testing. We're going to talk about D-work and the bounty process as a whole as operations has inherited it from engineering, what it means right now in its current form, and what we hope to see in its potential final form if we ever get there. I got a couple quick notes on beta.shapeshift.com and mobile. Then we'll open up the stage and let anyone else come up here and chat with us about operations stuff if we want. And then maybe we'll get some time back if we don't hang out for the whole hour. So yeah, that's what we're going to be chatting about. Feel free to throw questions in the stage chat or raise your hand. We definitely have the ability to bring people on stage on this call. We are not pressed for time. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. I guess I'll just get right into it with the new release procedure process, its cadence, and kind of what that means to ShapeShift and operations and our velocity. I put some numbers in the Allfox yesterday, just kind of monthly, month-over-month views of what's going on. But basically, if you're not in the know, we've gone to a much more agile release cadence where we used to do releases just on Tuesdays and Thursdays to make sure everyone was in alignment. And that meant that if you were going to be building on something and getting it out to the production environment so it was user-facing, you would have to make sure that everything was ready to go and got packaged in a release that was made on a Tuesday or Thursday. And if you had issues with your build, or there were bugs discovered, or you weren't near a Tuesday or Thursday, you just had to wait until the next available release day to get your stuff out there. And this was a response to previous centralized ShapeShift, us doing full prod releases for every single PR, and we wanted to group more of them together. There was a lot of, I don't know, this process has been evolved over time in many different forms to try and highlight and smooth over pain points and how to get faster. But that Tuesday, Thursday wasn't quick enough for us. You know, if someone was getting something in Thursday afternoon, they would have to wait all the rest of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday before they could be queued up to potentially get their changes out into production. And let's say there was a small bug that wasn't discovered until testing by ops on Tuesday, that could be a whole week before they get it out or longer. So in order to speed things up, we've now moved to releases 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. We don't push to prod on Fridays. That's just kind of hand stitched and framed above our fireplace mantle. You know, we don't push to prod on Fridays. But other than that, we are kind of just continuing to try and provide an arena in which developers here have more opportunity to get their changes out to prod quicker. This has allowed us to go from, instead of having 14 PRs in every release, we're down to 10 PRs in every release, which means that when our ops team has to test everything and go through everything and check wallets for each individual change, we get 4 less PRs that we have to be hyper-focused or anal about making sure that everything looks great. and that's freed up some time in our team. We've not only that though, because we're now doing the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we've increased the amount of PRs per week that we were doing. Just on Tuesday, Thursdays, we were getting just under 30 PRs out a week, 28 on average. And now we're doing over 42. So not quite doubling there, but a big increase just because of the available opportunity for developers to push things to prod has been widened. Within this, I do think that maybe there will be a future I foresee in which we can go 7 days a week with releases. We'll definitely need a bigger crew and a contributor base that is kind of all throughout the time zone. So when we get to the point that it's arguable about what a Friday is to the contributors here, I think we might have the conversation about if our releases are further holding back our development. But right now we're sticking with this Monday through Thursday. And we've also seen that we'd like to be more agile than just that. So because we've gone to this Monday through Thursday release with less testing required across the board here, because of how often we're doing it every single day, it's freed up some ops time, and we're trying to help devs even more in this pipeline before they get to a full release day. So now we have a protocol that's just started to be practiced. We've been encouraging it for a while, but it just started to be used. You can check it out actually in action in the ops public chat. But Apotheosis in the middle of the night had some changes. Wanted to give us a run at testing it before it went to the full deployment process. This allows us to make sure that early on, if there are things that you need a second pair of eyes on, we can make sure that we can help you with QA before you get to the actual day of the release. And the way in which he got our attention was posting an operations public chat and using the GitHub ticket label of needs operations, and then just letting us know, hey, mark this as needs operations. Would love some eyes and some tests, maybe some specific feature functionality that they'd like to see us test. But from there, we, and I feel like maybe I mentioned this previously in a ops sprint, we are trying to go a little more fluent with our comms inside the platforms that our devs are actually using. So ops is becoming more present and communicative inside GitHub. We are ready and available to respond to your comments and ask for testing. We are using those labels a little more appropriately inside our processes. So I've heard a lot of communication, or maybe I've diagnosed some breaks in comms here just due to the nature of all of the different places everyone as a DAO contributor is required to be active on, whether that's in Notion or in Discord or in GitHub or in dwork. I don't know if the list can go on further than that. But one of the things that I'd hope that we can do is maybe not find one ring to rule them all here, but specific dedicated containers or areas for where specific comms should be done. And it's just out of necessity from our communications with engineering shown that GitHub is a place that we should be having more of our testing communications be relayed. We'll still use Discord threads to do troubleshooting and things like that between our team, but we're also going to be using communication in GitHub a lot more. And I hope that as we become more agile with our comms, we can be role models and teachers and educators on other work streams on how to best collaborate or be heard or get your message across successfully as we continue to increase velocity here. Doesn't look like there's any comments in the stage chat, so I'm going to keep monologuing. What else can I say about this testing process? We've had a 30% decrease in our triage tickets that have been created. Again, part of that is around us finding the correct comms. Triage tickets are a very bulky process that lives completely in Discord and Google Sheets. And the unfortunate nature of that is most devs who are going to be working on those bug tickets don't see all of the detail work that we do in assessing it. So yeah, we are forklifting some of this triage process right into the direct platform of comms that will be seen and addressed right away. So some of our tickets are down due to the fact that we are more efficient, and some of our tickets are down due to the fact that our process is more efficient, and some of the tickets are down due to our communication being more efficient as well. So big, awesome improvements to be had all around there. We had an 83% decrease month over month in our hot fixes. And this is huge. I can't overstate how big this has been to quality of life improvements for both the ops and engineering team, as well as, I would assume, everyone downstream for any sort of release that has had an issue that's required a hotfix. We consider a hotfix any sort of release to the production environment that is outside of the regular Monday through now Thursday release cadence. And sometimes these are required. We miss a bug in all of our testing and we go to prod and all of a sudden things break. Sometimes that testnet, schmessnet philosophy on the ShapeShift t-shirt really rings true, and just because it worked in staging doesn't mean it's going to work in prod. So when we used to do our Tuesday, Thursdays, we would find ourselves and ops and engineers who were associated with the PR that was going out, sometimes staying on extra hours, sometimes continuing a release for a couple of days, sometimes having to introduce rollbacks. And a lot of these have really been smoothed out and made non-existent in our current kind of release pipeline. So I hope that maybe we can dig into the analytics on this and I can show you some hours saved and things like that. It gets a little subjective depending on just measuring timestamps inside Discord. But all in all, that's like a huge, huge win for productivity across multiple work streams there. And that's probably the biggest thing that I wanted to highlight inside this change here. We increased the amount of releases by 100%, and we didn't increase everything double across the board, but we did create a whole bunch of scenarios that have reduced our risk across the board in terms of breaking changes and big developments that go out with lots of code that requires specific eyes in weird edge cases. So it's made ops lives easier, it's made engineering's lives easier, and I hope it's made product marketing and growth, everyone else who's been involved with the process, just a little bit easier. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about our first topic of the day. Guys, feel free to raise your hand or ask more questions if you got them. Where's my agenda? Cool. Next up is D-work and the bounty process. And I'm going to do my best to field all of this. My two operations assistants who have kind of taken on most of the admin of this are both not on the clock right now. They're in Australian time and Philippine time, so they come on in a couple of hours here. So I'm happy to kind of talk where we are, what we used to do, and maybe dreams of the future. And then we can talk about it if people have some questions. The DAO didn't always go reach out for bounties in development. This was something that was spearheaded by Ocean and mostly kind of a one-man show over there. I know that DeFi also helped him a little bit. I believe that maybe even Josh, back early on when Josh was a work stream leader, also had his hands in this process. But we were looking for a place to increase our velocity by getting more dev cycles out of people beyond just our workstream contributors. And we have a good working relationship / Colorado local relationship with the folks over at Gitcoin. If you're not familiar with Gitcoin, it is one of the longest standing crypto bounty platforms out there, where it's a marketplace of people who need to get work done and people who are looking to get paid to do work. And we started porting all of our tasks over there that we felt were able to be accessible by people who didn't have a whole bunch of experience with our code or knowledge of ShapeShift in general, but could still help us out with the tasks that we were facing. So that process includes importing GitHub tickets, assigning value of price of what we are willing to pay for these things, and then the entire admin approval process for people who reach out to apply for these tickets, helping navigate any sort of troubleshooting they might have as they work on these tickets, approving the work once it's done, making sure that it meets the acceptance criteria, and then paying out the contributors for work to be done, and hopefully leading them on into the process to be a little closer to the DAO and their contributor relationship. There's kind of a tree that's been developed of, or maybe it's stairs, however you want to metaphorically think about it. But a contributor can come in, not know anything about the DAO, and get paid as a bounty hunter by the task. If they do good work, if they appreciate the symbiotic relationship of working inside this DAO, they can be trusted to do more than an individual task at a time. We try and make sure that we're not overloading individuals that we don't have a proven track record with tickets. And then if they've proven that they can take one ticket at a time successfully, we can open up the available ticket load to them. And upon joining stand-ups and communication with us inside the Discord and a reliable body of PRs that have made it to prod, there's kind of this elusive tier of trusted community devs. And we have a crew of folks, I think some of them are lovingly referred to as the French gang, kind of contributors all over the world that have transcended beyond bounty relations to individual tasks, but are tracking their time cards based on the work that they do. And this crew is not full-time workstream contributors and is still technically on more of a bounty style relationship with the DAO. But these folks have pretty intimate relationship with the code base. These folks are involved with the GitHub discussions actively on how we're solving these problems going forward in the future. And they've got a good communication pipeline with the workstream in DeFi. And then these folks, if they're doing their jobs well enough and the symbiotic relationship that's a little bit closer and more intimate continues and is desired to be something more than that, the hope is that this pipeline could finally come into someone being a core workstream contributor in the engineering workstream. And we have had a couple of folks that have kind of blasted their way through this pipeline maybe before it completely existed. I'd like to think that maybe some of the people that are currently in this pipeline could one day make it out the other end to being full workstream contributors to the engineering workstream. So this all existed with one individual admin connected to an account in GitHub, but was becoming to be too much of a burden for Ocean to take on. And so myself and my delegation skills with the rest of our ops team decided to inherit this project, see if we can optimize it a little bit, and take it off of engineering's concerns so they could get right back to what they do best in coding. So one of the first things that I inherited with this project was the frustrations and lack of usability inside Gitcoin. So Gitcoin is a project that is one of many projects from the parent company working on it. And right now, instead of the bounties, Gitcoin's more focused on Gitcoin grants. They've seen a lot more attention and action and participation on the grant side than the bounty side. So similar to how ShapeShift has not dedicated the same focus to maybe beta.shapeshift.com that we have to app.shapeshift.com. There's just sections of Gitcoin that when they break or are in need of love and care, they don't get the same sort of focus and attention as the main projects or focuses do. So this has been a pain point in our experience that Ocean definitely has receipts for days around us communicating with them, fixes we'd like to see, or breaking statuses that made us unable to use the service. And just, we hope them the best in the future when they refocus on it, but this was one of the major pain points that made the service become to be unusable for us. One of the other things that I discovered after inheriting this is I wanted to secure up the payment side of this with a Gnosis safe, just kind of be a little more DAO-ish and transparent about what we're doing. And in trying to make our process more secure, I bricked our payment accounts inside Gitcoin, because Gitcoin is not compatible with multi-sig addresses for payment like Gnosis Safe. So that was another big issue of sacrificing security and transparency for usability, which just seems like the square peg round hole situation is getting worse. There's a question there about any operations bounties coming up, or are those ones stopped currently? I don't have operations bounties. I have one operations bounty active right now that's with Miss doing some governance tracking work. And I know I kind of made some big promises about operations bounties a month or two ago, pre-bear market. And when our task list was a lot deeper and heavier, we've kind of been optimizing our responsibilities and what we're accountable for in the DAO to what the needs that are presented kind of as they happen are. So a lot of our go-no-go organization has been pared down. A lot of our testing has been pared down. And I think there'll be a time in which some of this can be bountied out to other people, or we might find tasks that are more specifically in tune for bounties. But just due to the kind of the austerity nature that we have going on right now at this bear market, I'm trying to keep as much of our responsibilities in-house as possible before we grow outside of it. As soon as we do have bounties and operations, though, they will be going through the same process as D-work. So maybe that's a good transition to come back into where we are now. That was Gitcoin, and it didn't work, and we were all of the ways we needed it to, and we could continue to lean into it and trust the alpha nature of it, that we would need to get some things done and sacrifice the multi-sig security of payouts, or we could try and find something new. And so we were approached by some folks over at D-Work to check out what they've got going on. And I've talked about it a little bit before, so I'm not going to go full in depth about all of the features of it, but basically at a high level, D-Work is kind of like a mirror site. It allows importing of data from other websites, projects, specifically things like GitHub, Notion, Trello, Discord. I think those are the major integrations that they have right now. And what they allow you to do is link all of those together and create kind of a one-to-one relation. So I've got a project board in D-Work that when someone moves a card on GitHub, it equally moves in D-Work. And when someone moves a card in D-Work, it equally moves in GitHub. It has all of the content from GitHub to most of the repos that we have, well, all of the repos that we have bounty work actively coming out of, but not all of the ShapeShift bounties, or all of the ShapeShift repos. And it also integrates with our Discord. So all of the really cool roles that we have that you can get by using the role selector channel or talking to someone in the mod squad, those are all imported as filters and gates to the board that we have there. So there are tickets that we can gate to only be seen by core contributors, as well as tickets that we can have open and available for anyone with a verified Fox tag to see. And with this, we can simply assign bounties based in USD or Fox value, and we can assign the network on which we're going to pay out. Right now, we only have one Gnosis safe set up for bounty payouts, and it's on mainnet. But I don't see why we couldn't now create one on Gnosis chain, one on Polygon. I think there's 8 or 9 blockchains that are currently supported in DWork in terms of payment. So with a couple of conversations with the engineering workstream and some logistics of figuring out the liquidity for Fox on the specific chains, we can most definitely start to do bounty payouts on different chains, still through DWork. And then one of the other really cool things about the Discord integration with DWork is it has a bot that can communicate with threads. So we have this bounties and jobs channel that every time someone applies for a bounty or gets assigned a specific ticket, if it's bounty related, a new thread will be created inside bounties and jobs. It will pull in the applicant. It will pull in the sponsor. And there becomes a containerized thread for the contributor to be able to troubleshoot and ask questions in a way that is more friendly and less intimidating than having a brand new person try and navigate our Discord to get the right roles, to get to communicate with an engineering work stream that they know no one on. So this has made the onboarding of new bounty hunters, or is hopefully making the onboarding for new bounty hunters easier, more palatable, not as much of a Discord mess of spaghetti that people get when they first jump in right away. So those are the feature sets that we've got with DWork. Right now, MB Maria, Max, and Lich are in charge of approving bounty hunters, kind of adminning a bounty hunter's flow through the process if they need to get coordinated with anyone else and they're not getting the attention that they need, as well as assigning Fox values to each of these bounties, any of the GitHub management of tagging and confirming with sponsors. And then at the other end, they're also in charge of payouts. This multi-sig is open up for all of operations to be able to handle. So if someone gets hit by a bus, we can continue this, as well as Ocean and DeFi. So if engineering needs to be involved with the payouts of these payments, they're allowed to as well. Where I see this going in the future, I really like the fact that we're using DWork with GitHub right now. And I know personally with operations, we use Notion for our own operations assistance tasks and go-no-goes on a Kanban board there. So I would hope that the integration would work pretty seamlessly with Notion. And when the time comes for operations to start opening up operational bounties again, we'll be able to seamlessly transpose our task board from Notion over to DWork as well. And instead of just having one tab for ShapeShiftDAO bounties, we can update that to ShapeShiftDAO engineering bounties. And we can have another section specifically for operations. Oh, one of the integrations I forgot to mention that I should recommend or say that has the functionality to as well is Coordinate. So you can even integrate dwork with Coordinate, which we are currently using for some of our bounties. So that would still mean kind of the mirror interface that things that happen on Coordinate also happen in dwork and back and forth. But it becomes kind of a all-in-one brain to the way in which multiple work streams, bounties could be maintained, contained, and expressed. That's dwork. I didn't know I was going to monologue on it for so long. I don't see any communication in the stage chat, but if anyone's got questions, feel free to raise your hand. Oh, hey Seth, let me bring you up here. GM, sir.
Hey, GM.
How's it going?
It's going great. So, I have a few questions about dwork and how efficient bounty work is compared to, I guess, traditional jobs, right? Because right now, the DAO's in a real bind, right? And we want to become more efficient and more conservative in our spending. So, first question is, as far as efficiency for bounty hunters like myself, right now the rule is that we can only accept one bounty at a time. And I understand the reasoning behind it. Obviously, you don't want someone taking a bunch of bounties and not doing them. But I think for smaller bounties, one of the time costs for a bounty hunter is just that there's a time cost to apply for jobs and a time cost, once the job's done, searching for the next one. So I think for smaller bounties, it makes sense for someone to be able to have more than one. Now, you could keep things simple and say something to the effect of maybe you can accept as many bounties as up to a certain dollar amount, right? But I think if people can apply to multiple jobs at a time, it kind of streamlines the pipeline for accepting new jobs.
Interesting. So I guess my first kind of response in that would be, I totally agree with you. We're definitely in a space of optimizing and being hyper aware of our DAO spend. But what I did hear in that was that it was maybe like a frame of reference for optimizing the bounty hunter experience more so than the platform that's requesting the work from the bounty hunter themselves. And I think we definitely want to give a good experience to our contributors. But really the end goal here is that we're working on this ShapeShift app, right? This product suite that we have here. So one of the ways I think that could be solved, honestly, is through our adoption of dwork. Dwork is really, we're just one little tab on the entire world of DAOs and DeFi projects that are using dwork to get bounty work done. So my first maybe suggestion in the my plate is not full enough, or I would like to make sure that I can get more tickets allocated to myself, would be to encourage a contributor to take a look at the other DAOs that are using dwork and fill your plate with more than just ShapeShift work. There's kind of like an upstream problem there too, that if you would like to take on more tickets, that requires us to have more low-level tickets for you to take on, which would love to highlight a friction point inside the process here. And if we get to the point that the bottleneck is back on engineering, on not getting enough tickets bountied out, then ops has done our job right. And we can kick that ball right back over the fence and say, all right, boys, how do we optimize this so we can get more tickets out faster? Right now, I think because we have a slight knowledge of the fact that we're not getting as many tickets out. If you were to work on 4 tickets versus we were to have 4 contributors each working on 1 ticket, I think that reduces our like risk towards like flight risk, of one of these contributors just saying, fuck it, I don't care. I'm Fox price went down, I'm out. Although I will caveat that with saying that we do peg all of our bounties to USD with Fox, so you will get the same value if you finish it, and price dips or raises after it's been posted. But yeah, I would say that there's a way in which if we allow these first round of contributors to start taking more of these scarce tickets that we currently have, we're limiting our ceiling to being available to new contributors that would be interested in becoming potential candidates in the pipeline.
Okay, fair enough. There is a lot to consider here, so I'm just trying to get the conversation started.
Hell yeah. No, I'm happy you're up here chatting with me about it. Way better than me fucking talking to myself.
Yeah, I'm very happy with the information you revealed about the D work program and where it is that we're going with it. So the other side of the efficiency concern, I suppose, is how does the efficiency of bounty work compare to, to just doing it in house, right? Because there's a lot of time costs to, posting a bounty, managing it, making sure that, work's still being done, right?
Totally.
So
I'll be honest and upfront, I haven't done any cost benefit analysis on the time effort around all of this. And I think maybe that's something we should make more of a keen eye to at some point. If we think kind of more holistically around the kind of company we are, the kind of tech we are working on, and the workload that we're inheriting, my experience at centralized Shapeshift was that we will always have more work than cycles available. And there's lots of different ways to solve the problems that creates. But in a tech company like what we're doing, where we've got trying to keep a competitive edge, we're going to find ourselves in places that we need to. I'm losing myself here. That we need to solve this problem in a different way. We used to do that via consulting firms. There was this early software development firm called Ideas by Nature that was not Shapeshift related at all, that we just hired out devs per hour on hire to get a lot of this done, and maybe like an earlier version of bountying work. Sometimes they handled it really well. Sometimes they got things done really quickly. Sometimes the bureaucracy of doing a dev shop like that just ended up making things slower or more costly. A lot of the people from IBM, actually, just anecdote, are DAO contributors now. Folks like Elma, Toshi, who else? Justin Portis, some other folks out there from that dev shop actually became more DAOishly related to us and became Shapeshift members or have become contributors, kind of like a modern bounty. We ended up using a dev shop for a while before bounties as well, called, what were the gorillas officially called? I don't remember if someone in the crowd remembers the gorillas. We had kind of a South American for hire dev shop team that was much cheaper than the US dev shop team that we were currently doing, but also required a lot of management, funding, things like that. And now that we're in a space of DAO kind of relations, those things don't have to be with a centralized dev shop anymore. Those can be decentralized all the way down to individual bounties. We could, of course, bring all of those tasks in-house and only do work by people who are salary. I think that goes back to the mantra of having more work than we have available cycles. And of course, we'd love to continue to hire devs. I think we're net negative one dev in our engineering work stream right now. But getting a quality person and doing the process to make sure that we have a good flow for that extra work, as well as a entryway in to become a work stream contributor, I think is where we're at now. We're trying to refine ourselves into.
Okay, so it sounds like there's some sections of work where the benefit actually does outweigh the cost. And so the uh, having a bounty program is a net benefit to the DAO as long as, I guess it stays in that line, even if we don't consider, you know, hiring uh bounty hunters.
Sure, there may be a time in which we need to not post any more bounties because we don't have the Fox for it or something like that. I highly doubt we'll get to that level of austerity. But even at that point, shuttering it, we can just kind of become inactive and turn it back on whenever the bull market or the funds available or things like that can allow us to do so. I think we're open to the opportunity for this to be organized in fashions outside of DWork. DWork is still alpha and is still developing, but our relationship with the contributors there and their expedient sort of features that they've been able to churn out upon request has been much more receptive than our relationship with Gitcoin currently is.
Yeah. I never liked the Gitcoin interface, so I'm not losing any sleep over the change.
Totally. We went from
But
like something that was super centralized and non-customizable to something that was like open world Skyrim. You can do whatever you want. And so we're definitely trying to continually focus how we use DWork so it becomes really tight and engaging and doesn't have a lot of the fluff there. But that's definitely a process that I'm learning and trying to allow organically to be developed by the two managers that I have learning as well.
okay, so it seems to me then that there's kind of two types of bounty hunters that you're looking at, right? There's people who just want to do, one-off work, and then there's people who want to come in and become, part-time or full-time contributors or workers of the engineering work stream. How do you sort of plan on separating out those two?
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I mean, I
Right.
think that one can come in with an intention for one and leave with an intention for the other. Um, I think that at the end of it, the like biggest goal is work gets done. I
Right.
think the pipeline is a tertiary goal that if we can bake in our best of intentions while we're still getting the work done, we should always lean into something like that. Um, but I think that the nature of DAO participation in general is we're all here because we care.
Hmm.
And when it gets to the bounty level there too, um, like if they're here because they care, they will follow that path and try and join us during stand-ups. They will become a recognizable handle and someone that can be acknowledged or referred to or trusted upon. And if you just want to make a quick buck, like we got a path for you to make a quick buck too. And if you do it to our specs and the ways that we are asking for our AC, then then get your bread and help us build the DeFi tool of the future.
Okay.
Does that
Does
answer it, or does that leave it as still the segregated out?
well, I mean, I guess the segregation between those two groups would be level of involvement, right? So someone who comes from D work and just, gets a job done, but doesn't really participate in the Discord or the community, that would be more of a, one-off worker, I suppose. But someone
Totally.
who gets more involved and, you know, gets an informal reputation in the community, right? Would
Totally. It can develop trust. Now, the trust is one part of the equation on climbing that metaphorical stair ladder to a development full-time core workstream position. The level of code is something that has to be considered as well. The culture, the nature of communication and documentation. So it's kind of the flow that allows us to see that full package as it happens.
Right, and that's precisely what I'm using dwork for, right? I'm trying to use it as I suppose, as a learning process and as an informal interview process of, hey, once I'm churning these out at a reasonable rate, maybe you'd like more of me, right?
Totally. And
something to that
I
effect.
guess what I would say is there's first off, I used to tag when there was a tag availability in Gitcoin, and dwork it's kind of just a mirror, so it's not there. But we consider all of our contributions and bounty tickets to at least be at the level of intermediate code experience. If you were to break it down into 3 buckets of beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So there's some level of I love the fact that you're building a story and a narrative to your relation and the work that you're doing here with us, but some of it is about the story that you build via your body of work, not necessarily just you yourself. So yeah. And then I feel like there are people who have just let their work stand for themselves without necessarily putting a name to the face, and it gets a little bit harder for us to reach out to them and get them connected, but we still maybe do our best to try and do that, and vice versa. It feels like you've been in since the genesis of the Discord and stuff like that. We just need to marry the rest of those together. But I would say it's good to maybe phrase it as an informal interview, but to never assume that it is such.
Of course. Right. Yeah. So right now, the separation between different types of bounty hunters is not specifically delineated, and that's fine. To me, the difficulty of the bounty is just manifest in, you mentioned to me earlier or at another time that the cost of the bounty is equal to the amount of hours you'd expect it to take one of your core developers. And if that's the case, the difficulty is kind of, directly in the price. So
totally. Yeah. We unfortunately can't be the bill or foot the bill for an education experience. If one of our developers could handle this ticket in 30 minutes and it took you 30 hours, we can't pay you for all 30 hours there. We would go bankrupt and we wouldn't have much to show for it.
right.
But yeah, that's kind of the measuring bar that you get to look at as a bounty hunter, and how long would this take me to do this? Is that amount of work worth the pay that they're assigning to that? And
Right.
and so
no, the way you're doing it totally makes sense. For me, I'm a bit of a special case because I'm, have a little bit of experience in web development, but I'm kind of learning React and the code base as I'm doing it. So obviously my efficiency is going to be lower, but it will rapidly increase as I get the experience. So to me, the bounty program is very nice in that it allows me to get very practical experience inside your specific code base and figure it out. And any extra time I take, yes, it's a learning experience for me, but I'm not expecting the DAO to pay for that, right?
totally.
Not unless
And
a specific deal is made.
Totally. And one of the circumstances I guess I could point to now is that we, in the market of bounties versus bounty hunters, we do not have an extreme increase in the demand. There may be times in the future where we have more bounty hunters that are interested than bounties that are available. And there may come some points where we have to start instilling hard, transparent deadlines on when this ticket needs to be done before it gets pulled and given to someone else. Or before we have to reject an applicant or things like that. I think we're still a little young in the process and more apt to finding contributors kind of across the board. So I don't think that we're at a hard limit there. But I would say if you're planning on using our bounty work to as like a code academy sort of experience, and tickets start to extend beyond the extremely beyond the timeline that was expected in the hourly pay there, we might have to have some conversations about future bounties if that's the expected behavior.
Of course. In fact, I think that's an aspect that could be fleshed out on D work, is sort of more metadata on the bounty of how urgent is it. And the level of urgency, I think level of difficulty would also make it easier for bounty hunters to know what to expect uh, right away. But simple tag information I think could help along those lines, right? So in my particular case, obviously I'm focusing on non-urgent stuff, so that if it takes me longer for any reason, it's not hurting the DAO, right?
Totally. And hopefully we'll continue to have a pile of non-urgent things that we can have people in your kind of similar story be able to join and contribute and feel welcome in your contributions and your timelines.
Right.
I don't know if that's something we want to bake our guidelines around always being the DAO to have that experience, but while that's something that is part of the valued participation of the circumstances, I think we're definitely open to that and happy that you've chosen us as your chalkboard to learn with.
Right. Yeah, I think as long as everyone's happy, we can keep doing it. I'm just trying to
Well,
sort of see into the future of what do we want this bounty program to be for? And I'm not assuming that my case is the standard case. I don't think it is.
sure.
But
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever optimize our bounty program to be something that is designed for individual bounty hunters to fulfill full salary roles off of. I think if that's like a goal, your end goal here, it would be something that you would have to achieve higher up in the tier of a trusted community dev or a full-time work stream. And if you're doing the just individual bounties like you currently are, and you'd like to say fill up your plate big enough that you could pay your rent doing that, I definitely think that looking more outside of ShapeShift to get those smaller bounties in other DAO protocols is going to be the best way to check that box for you currently.
right. Well, that's the part of one of the advantages of being a bounty hunter is that I'm not exclusive to this DAO, right? I could have 3 other bounties and 3 other DAOs, and you wouldn't know about it. And
Totally.
bringing someone like me on to being a part-time or full-time role, that would be how you gain that exclusivity, right? So
Yeah. And like, I'm not the full arbiter on the decision making in that. I think that that's more clearly in DeFi's hands and on a case by case basis, on when we're able to choose those folks as they climb the ladder. And I don't know if it would behoove us to make like a very clear when you do X, you get Y in terms of that ladder there. But if it's something that we feel would be appetizing or intriguing to future talent, I think it's something we could definitely kick around and get some numbers around.
right. And to me, I can't really start that conversation until the quality of my work starts to approach the quality of an actual dev's work, right?
Hey, you're
So
an actual dev. Don't say
no,
you're
no,
not
but
an
but you
actual
know what I
dev.
mean, like an in-house dev.
Sure.
So if the difference in quality between me and someone else is too high, I don't think it's worthwhile to even start the conversation, which is why I
Yeah,
have.
it's one of those. How do we make sure that everyone is um, has a fair seat at the table while still being meritocratic about it?
Of course.
Well, cool.
All right.
You said you had a whole
One.
bunch of questions. Did we plow through them, or do you still have some
Yeah,
more you
I
want
have
to throw
just
out?
one more. Does D-Work have a reputation system? I know Colony does, but I think that relates to that question of
Um,
trust, which is kind of essential to bounty work.
Totally. The way in which they have reputation right now is kind of built more so out of the network that they currently have. So I can go into any individual bounty hunter's profile and see what other DWork um, DAOs they're connected to, what other work they've finished has been. It's very similar to like a GitHub history. So the rep that you get is based on the bounties that you complete.
Okay, but I don't think that necessarily tells you what the experience will be like with that person. So even
Sure.
simple
Yeah,
things like did they complete how many bounties are they apply for versus how many they're getting? That's a metric. Uh, how does their actual results compare with their deadline? Right. I think they're
totally. Some of these are like after the work has already been done, sort of thing. You know, like those sound like metrics that like now that I've approved you for 5 bounties and you've um, passed them all with flying colors in every single the first day that I give them to you. There's metrics I get, but I think really the reputation and what we're looking for is what's the level of this brand new stranger that I've never met before, and how do I verify that they are who they say they are to a level that I could trust them to work on this ticket and block it off for them over this other individual who I have very little to no information about
okay.
either. And so like our early like sort of tasks on that were like kind of loose and honestly biased and not the greatest, you know. And in Gitcoin, it was like if the person responded in English, that was a step above a person who didn't, because we at least had confirmation that they understood the task at hand. If a person had a GitHub repo attached to it, that kind of was some pluses, you know. I can kind of see your activity, but I know for a fact that there's a lot of people out here that have multiple GitHub handles that some of them they're willing to share, some of them they're not willing to share, or also that you're able to fake a whole bunch of contributions to make it look like you've done a lot all over the place when really you've done not much. So this feels a little bit like the KYC on the blockchain sort of problem slash solution, and I'm not even 100% sure how we make a solution here that doesn't require some level of financial or time investment on this. And I guess at the end of it right now, I don't have enough data to prove that this is something that's worth those cycles to discover with how young and new it is. Like, to be honest with you, I think we've had 4, maybe 5 new bounty hunters this month. And with that, my tactic would be more around making sure that they have a good experience and that we can get as much work out of them and put them through the funnel as possible, rather than trying to take that small sample size and make any kind of judgment around it.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds like then that the answer to this trust question is most strongly solved by people actually coming to the DAO, right? Getting us just DAOing it and people joining the community seems the most effective way to solve this trust problem, which is, I think, one of the biggest problems to solve in bounties, right? Is this
Sure,
person actually
sure.
going to do the work? Are they going to go AWOL at some point?
And yeah, if they do, they get on the shit list, and that's kind of the end of it. And then they don't get invited